Good afternoon. Another beautiful day here in Sacramento, and we have another intellectual, lovely lady, Ebony Queen, to interview today. Her name is Miss Karen Johnson. We'll probably have to do 2 interviews on her. She's so talented. But today we're going to interview her about her book, Covered and Kept, which is only the first part of the title. And I'm going to just put you into her and let her tell you a little about herself, where she's from, and how she got to where she is right now. Sister Johnson.
Yes, well, I'm what you call a military brat. I was born overseas in Taiwan. My father was in the Air Force, and at the age of 3, he retired and he moved. Well, actually, he didn't retire, but he was stationed in George Air Force Base, Southern California. And my father stayed in the military for 1 more year, and then he moved us up to Northern California. I was raised in San Jose, California.
Right. Do you know the way to San Jose? All right.
Yes, I do. Yes.
All right.
And so I grew up there, and I left San Jose at the age of 19. So I went through high school, graduated, and what I realized I graduated a semester early, and we were talking just before we came on live about education, and not all children are cut out to go to college, but my father was a professor at San Jose State University, and as well as San Jose City College, and he always talked about higher education, higher education, higher education. However, he told us to go the junior college route first and then go to a 4-year college after that. And so I took my daddy's advice and I did that. However, while I was in between high school and college, I went to work because a lot of my cousins were getting work in Silicon Valley, and I worked at an electronics plant.
All right.
And I will tell you, I realized then that God created me for something more. It wasn't to stand at a machine, a mindless machine at that, and spin wafers all day long. And it was at that time, or it was then I realized, or I solidified my decision to go on to college and really get serious about getting a higher education.
Good, good. And what college did you go to?
Well, I finished up at Long Beach State University.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And now you're in Sacramento, though, so you had to do something between Long Beach and Sacramento.
I did. I graduated. My major was radio, television, and film. Okay. And upon graduation, I landed my first job that I interviewed with a cable network, and I worked in that field. I worked behind the camera and in front of the camera, and I did that for about five years. And I liked the work, but I didn't like what it was doing to me.
Okay.
I didn't like the high stress, and I didn't like the competitiveness, and I was turning into something different. I was turning into a different person. I was raised in a very close-knit family, and I have a twin sister. There's 6 kids.
Oh, okay.
And my family, or my parents, instilled a lot of good qualities in me. And one of the qualities that I didn't like was just that real competitive edge that I found myself being. And I began to get disgruntled with my job and knew that, you know what, maybe I need to start looking at something else. During that time, I had a boyfriend who was an entrepreneur, and I really liked the freedom that he had being an entrepreneur. And I thought, I might be kind of good at that. And so I was just curious about it, but I was still working. And some situations came about, and you can read them in the book.
I love it.
And as a result of that, I ended up moving to Sacramento.
All right. All right.
However, in between Los Angeles and Sacramento, I conceived my son.
Okay.
And I conceived my son out of wedlock. I was not married. But I know that he was a gift from God. And it was after I conceived him, to me, life began to have new meaning for me.
Yes, it does. When a child comes.
It really did. It was no more about me, myself and I.
Responsibility.
It was about responsibility and this little young tyke. I had a boy, about this young boy that I was raising. And so I really had to get really clear and honest with myself. But one of the things that I did do, because I wasn't married, and I know that God was instrumental in me making the decision to have my child. And that was, I told him, if I'm going to have this child, Lord, you're going to have to take care of us. I can't do this on my own. Because my son's father decided that he wanted hands off, that he did not want to be a part of it. And as I said, of course, the part of that story is in the book.
Okay.
And shortly between the age of 3, just before he turned 4, I moved to Sacramento.
Okay, great. And it seems like you've blossomed since you've been in Sacramento.
Well, my attitude was this. I said, if I can make it in Los Angeles, I can make it anywhere. That was my attitude. And that's interesting you would say that, because I got out of Los Angeles very quickly. And again, it's in the book. But I got out of Los Angeles very quickly. I had no job. I had a little savings. And again, a hope and a prayer. And I did not let any of that deter me. And some people, they thought, wow, you're a single mom. You're raising a child on your own. You're going to a place that you've never lived before. And you don't have a job? I said, oh, no. I wasn't even worried about it. I said, no. I knew the Lord would take care of me, and he has.
All right. Okay. Well, now let's get into the book a little bit.
Okay.
Because I'm so interested in the title, Covered and Kept is the first part of the title.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about it.
That's a loaded title. It's a loaded title, but before I tell you about the title, I just want to kind of give your viewers a little bit more background before I do that. At the age of, or in 1985, this gentleman put a book in my hand, and that book was titled Steps to Christ. And I believe that was, well, it was before then, but I believe from my recollection that was really the time that God was wooing me to him. Steps to Christ. Well, I took the book and I put it away, and I wasn't interested in reading that little book at all. And I wasn't even a Christian. I was having myself a good old time. And that was the furthest thing from my mind. When I got to Sacramento, I believe that the Lord spoke to me 3 times through that little tyke, that young man that I had, my son Tristan. And the first time, he said, my son said, shortly after we got to Sacramento, I want to go to church. I heard it, but I didn't hear it, I thought. And a few days went by, and out of nowhere, he said it again. I want to go to church. And I thought about it, but again, I didn't. The last place I wanted to be at that time in my life was church. And so the third time, he says, Mommy, let's go to church. And when he said that, I said, okay, God, all right. You are speaking to me through my child. And that was when I began my quest in finding a church. Well, I did find a church, and I got in the church, and I got involved, and life, continued to happen. I continued to do my thing. Now, what I realized when I was going to college is I was teaching aerobic classes. I loved working out. I loved the way it made me feel. And of course, just staying fit. I just loved that. And so when I got to Sacramento, I started teaching classes. I started teaching classes at a lot of different gyms, a lot of different locations. And so anyway, I started, teaching these classes. But while I was teaching these classes, again, I'm going to church, and I'm also doing some outside sales, because I wanted to have the independence that a single mom needed. If I had to be at my son's conference or wherever I needed to be, I needed that freedom and that flexibility. So I did that for some years until I got married. And then when I got married, my life kind of took another twist, or took another turn. My husband was a media man, and I'm sure, I don't know if you know him, but your wife, I'm sure she knew him.
I know him too.
And his name was John Johnson. And as I said, I was teaching these different classes at different gyms, and just what happened one morning, I walked into my gym, and there was Mr. Johnson. Not only was he there, but he was there with his camera, and he was there to videotape my class. Well, I had met him at another location, not far from the Salvation Army. I had met him before. We had exchanged cards, and so when I saw him at the gym, I already knew him, and we acknowledged each other, and I went on to my little room to teach my class. And as I was teaching, I was thinking, oh, why didn't they tell me? Now, this was a 6 a.m. class, and so I was not prepared to be on camera or anything like that, but I said, okay, here goes nothing, and I taught my class. And at that time, it was a little seniors class, little old white hair ladies, and we had a blast. And after it was over, we spoke, and I went my way and he went his way. On another occasion, I found myself walking out of the Salvation Army, and who did I see? I saw John Johnson again. At this time, I am praying, wanting the Lord to lead me to a husband. My son was getting older. I didn't want to raise him all the way up on my own. And so I knew it was, it was time, way overdue, for me to be married. And so I didn't know he would be the one, of course, but we met, we talked again, and I went my way. Well, when it happened the fourth time, I thought, okay, Lord, maybe he is the person for me. But I was in a relationship, and so I wasn't interested. I was in a relationship. But when that relationship ended, and he called me like out of the blue, I thought, okay, maybe there is something to this. And so we began to date. While we were dating, I met a lady who discipled me. She began to give me Bible studies. And as she began to give me Bible studies, I began to share more with her about my life. And as I was sharing with her about my life, she said, you need to write a book. And I thought, me write a book? Yeah, right. No one's going to want to read about my life. And so I laughed it off, and I didn't take it serious at all. And it wasn't until 2006 when, again, my life took a crazy twist. I said, okay, Lord, all right. So how did this title come about, Covered and Kept? Well, many people have heard this story, but I will just do a quick little recap. My husband and I, we were on a date night. It was March 25th, 2006. We didn't know where we were going to go to eat that particular night. And we had a wonderful day together. And he said, let's go out. And I said, well, before we go to his friend's house, then my mom's house, I want to go out and get something to eat. And he said, okay, great, let's go. Not only did he say, let's go, he said, you choose a restaurant. Well, I didn't know what restaurant I was going to go to. I just knew, okay, I wanted to go to a place that I'd never been before. And as we're driving down Laguna Boulevard, I looked to my right and I saw this restaurant. I said, hey, would you like to go there? And he says, have you ever been there? I said, no. He said, well, let's go. Well, this was a sports restaurant, and the Kings were playing, Sacramento Kings, and he loved the Kings. He used to work for the Kings. And so he said, yeah, let's go. And so we pulled in. I parked. I happened to be driving. I parked the car and we went in. When I got in there, Frank, my spirit didn't feel right. I wanted to say, let's go. I'm not feeling this, let's go. Let's go someplace else. But I looked at him and I could see that he really was enjoying the game. The Kings were on the road, and I said, okay, Karen, don't be selfish. Just endure. And so I did. And I believe my spirit didn't feel right because the music was loud. People were laughing and talking. They were drinking. I just had a wonderful, quiet, peaceful day, spiritual day. I came off of a spiritual high, and the last thing I wanted was this. But we went. And about halfway through, he says, honey, we need to leave. I said, okay, let's go. Went to the car. I happened to get to the car before him. And he was standing outside talking on his cell phone. A man who was on a murderous shooting spree ran up to him and shot him in the face and ended his life. And I won't go into any of the details because, again, they're in the book, but it was a nightmare. It was hell. It was hell. going through that experience and getting through that experience. And one of the things that I kept asking was why. I kept asking the Lord, why? Why? Why me? Why him? Why did this happen? Why did this have to happen? And I was in a daze. And the worst part is the fact that I was there. I saw the man who took his life. I saw his physical condition. I saw the grotesque, his face disfigured. I saw all of that. And I couldn't understand. Like, Lord, why did you allow me to see this? I mean, I had nightmares, morbid thoughts. Oh, it took months. I didn't work for a year. It was hell. It really was. People see me, they saw me, they thought I was okay, but I was not okay. I knew it was my faith that got me through, my faith in God that got me through. I knew that. If I did not have a relationship with Christ, if I did not know him, and if I did not know that there's an adversary out there called the devil, I don't know where my life would have ended up. I don't know what I would have done. But that is what I clung to. And so the title Covered and Kept came because I sat in the car and the shooter was right there. He was right there, right upon the car. Blasted John. He had shot at other cars, cops, other people. Shooting into cars, but not my car. And all I could do was, I was covered. That's what I kept saying. I was covered. I was covered. That's what I kept saying. I was covered. Well, writing a book was nowhere in my mind, of course. Nowhere in my mind. And just getting through that, the detectives, the police, the chaplains, just that whole night was a nightmare. And now I'm at home, I'm in bed, I'm trying to sleep. The horror movies where you see scenes just flashing on the TV and you hear this noise, that's what I was experiencing every time I closed my eyes. And all I could do was just lay in the bed and just cry because I couldn't sleep. And after about, I just got up and I just paced the floor. I just kept pacing the floor back and forth. And finally, after a day or so of that, my mother just, we had a friend who was a doctor. He said, you know what, I'm going to give you some medication so that you can sleep. And it was then I was able to sleep. Well, after that, then up to the funeral, just a lot of things transpired. Many, many things transpired that I don't have time to talk about. But as those things were going and it was hitting me, all I could do was think of Ephesians. Ephesians, is it 6, chapter 10, about the fiery darts. I knew that I was embroiled in spiritual warfare. And Satan did not get me that night. And he was trying to take me out. And I knew it. And one thing after another kept happening. And all I could do was just cry out to the Lord. I didn't know what else to do. But now I'm sleeping, but I'm not eating. I lost 16 pounds in about a week and a half. I went from 131 pounds to 116 pounds in about a week. And it wasn't easy. Well, after we finally got him, we got through the funeral, and he was laid to rest. My sister said, "Do you want to go away?" And I said, yes. I almost started crying because my phone was ringing off the hook. People were coming by. John was loved by many people.
Yes, he was.
And many people knew him. At the funeral, we had over 1,000 people. We had it at a very large church here in Sacramento. I knew we had to because I knew that he knew a lot of people and I knew a lot of people. And we didn't want to have to turn people away. And so we had it at a very large church here in Sacramento. And after that was all over, then I thought my nightmare was over, but it continued. It didn't get any better. Things did not slow down. It got more and more and more and more intense. Well, once my sister got me away, I just thought, finally I can rest. No, it didn't happen. It got worse. My girlfriend was able to call me. I was way up in the mountains. I couldn't even call out, but this particular day she was able to get through. She called me and gave me some pretty shocking news. And when I got the shocking news, all I could do, Frank, is just cry out. and say, Lord, this battle is not mine, it's yours. I can't fight it, I'm too weak. I cannot do it. You're going to have to do this, I can't. And I just threw my hands up and gave it to him. And I said, Lord, I will write. And that is when the book came about, Covered and Kept. And so that's how I got the title.
Okay. Okay. That's so compelling that, you know, you never lost your faith.
Mm-mm.
You know, that's what we're talking about now.
Amen. Praise God.
You know, you
Amen.
never lost your faith.
Not at all.
Because, you know, you can lose direction.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But God will pull you back.
Amen.
Yeah, if you stick with him, he'll stick with you.
Amen.
He may take you through some trials and tribulations, but he'll bring you back home.
Amen.
Yeah.
You know, I kept thinking about, the Bible is so beautiful. And I kept thinking about the stories, the story of Joseph being thrown in the pit by his brothers. What Satan meant for bad, God meant it for good. And so I thought, okay, Lord, how can I turn this ugly, this terrible situation into good? And that was my desire, to turn an ugly situation into good. And one of it, of course, was the book. The other one was John started a nonprofit. And John said something to me that night just before he was killed. He said, honey, this is going to be a great year. And I thought, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. We can use a great year. And those were some very positive words, and I was so excited. Those words told me that we were going to have a bright future together, a wonderful future together. In about less than 2 hours, it was over. It was gone. Honey, it's going to be a great year. So I said, okay, Lord, how can I turn this terrible situation into good? Well, one of the things was he loved children. You could see him courtside at the Kings games. And after the games, he would get the kids out there. He would see to it that some of the kids could get little autographs from Chris Webber and some of the other players. And he just loved children. And so I said, okay, I'm going to rename his nonprofit from being Assist One, and we're going to call it the John Johnson Assist One Foundation. And so that was another good that came out of a very ugly situation. It helped me to heal. It helped me to kind of keep him alive while I was going through this wilderness, you know, while I was trying to claw my way out of this dark pit that I found myself in, while I was trying to close the hole that was burned or blown through my heart when that man, you know, unloaded that 12-gauge shotgun in his face. It enabled me to heal. And for me, I needed that. And so that is some of the good that came out of it. And then I continued to read my Bible. I read about the story of Job and how his wife told him to curse God and die and all of this. And I kept just relaying all of the things that was happening to me to the story of Job. I felt like Job when I was going through a lot. Nobody understood. Nobody understood what I was going through. My mother and I are very close. My son and I are very close, but nobody understood where I was at other than Christ. He knew. He said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. And that is what I kept telling myself, because I could feel the darkness. I could feel Satan and his demons all around me. I could feel it. And all I could do is say, God, you said you'll never leave me nor forsake me. And that is the promise that I clung on to day by day, moment by moment, as I was trying to claw my way out of this dark pit. It wasn't easy.
So this book is actually a testimony.
It's a testimony. It's loaded. Good, bad, and ugly. Rated R.
And that is life, right?
And that is life, because my marriage was very challenging. It was not a bed of roses. I love John, and I know my husband loved me, but we had some issues. Some issues. And I'm pretty transparent. I figured if I'm going to tell it, I have to tell the whole story. And so I'm very transparent in this book. But the whole purpose of it is not to point fingers at anyone. The purpose is to help us to keep our eyes on Christ, and or if we don't have that connection and that walk, to get it, to find it, because we need it, because we are truly living in the last days. I believe, in Earth's history. And so that's the only thing that you can hold on to. Is Christ.
Okay. Now tell us a little about the book, because you really, kind of gave a testimony about what got you to the book.
Yeah.
And why you chose, Covered and Kept.
Yeah. Well, the subtitle is The Tearing Between Two Worlds. The Tearing. And that world is light and darkness, Christ and Satan, good and evil. So the tearing between two worlds. One person said when he read the book, he said, I see that in your life, in your story, where you've been, all the things that you've gone through. A lot of people look at me and they're like, but you're so strong. I can't believe you're that woman in that book. And I attribute a lot of that, one, to my faith, and two, my health and my fitness, because I lead a very healthy life in what I eat, in what I drink, and in exercise, and all of the things that the laws that God has set up in place in the beginning in Genesis. The original diet was Genesis 1:29,
That's
fruits
right.
and grains and nuts and things like that. I don't talk it, I'm about it. I live it. And so when people look at me, they're like, man, I can't believe you went through all of this. And again, I attribute that, one, to my faith, first and foremost, God, and then two, the lifestyle that I live. The book is really about forgiveness. It's about love. And there's a story in the book about Hosea, to kind of pull it all together. Hosea and Gomer. And you relate that really to the children of Israel. The children of Israel were God's chosen people.
Yes, they were.
Over and over again, they went a whoring around. Over and over again, they were worshiping false idols. They were doing all of these things. See, those are some of the things that I experienced in my marriage. My husband was not faithful, but I stayed with him. And I would tell my husband all the time, the covenant I made with you, I made with God first. God first, then you second. And so some people, they read the book and they're like, how could, first of all, well, why did she marry him? And two, why did she stay? And all I can say is, if you read this book and then you read about Hosea, he was a prophet, and God told him to take this prostitute as a wife. And he did, in obedience. And she had babies out of wedlock on him. And he raised those children as they were his own. And as I said, in the end, this book really talks about forgiveness. How, one, I had to come to terms with, one, forgiving my husband, forgiving myself, forgiving the man that murdered my husband, forgiving a whole lot of people. And how God forgave me and you. And that what came out very clear to me every time I went to the cemetery. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand why every day I felt impressed to go to the grave. I couldn't understand it. Prior to my husband's death, the cemetery was the last place you would see me. My mother would say, oh baby, can you take me to, I want to go put some flowers on my brother's grave. And, oh mom, why do we have to do that? Oh, come on mom, do we? But you know what? When I lost that man, I kept going to the grave. I thought I was going to visit him, but no. God met me there. And he showed me myself. He showed me myself. And he showed me what he has done for us on Calvary, on the cross. And that's why I kept going to the grave. I went so many times until I was afraid to tell people. And I would just go and cry and plead and pray and cry and plead and pray.
But it's not about people, it's about you.
Yes.
And God knows.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter what people know. They're going to, people are people. They're going to make decisions and say what they want to say and do the things they want to do.
Yes.
But we as a believer, as believers, we just have to follow his instructions even when the other folks don't think it's the right thing to do.
Yes, that's true. Yes. Yes.
Well, it's been a blessing talking to you today. And how can they get your book? Do you have a website? Can they buy it online?
I do. The website is called, www.coveredandkept.com, and that's AND. So covered, COVERED, AND, kept.com, because if you see here it has the and symbol, but you have to spell andapp.com, and they can purchase the book right off the website.
All right.
Yes, and my email is KarenJ@coveredandkept.com. KarenJ@coveredandkept.com. So if anyone have any questions, or they're here in Sacramento and they want to just get it directly from me, they can. And then, Frank, I also go out and I share my testimony at different churches and different organizations, women's conferences, and things like that as well.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, again, this is Frank Withrow with Reasons for Rhyme. That's my email address. And if you want to go to the website, it's poetfrankwithrow.com. poetfrankwithrow.com. Again, today we've been with the fantastic and the glorious Ebony Queen, Miss Karen Johnson, giving us a little information about a book. We're going to have a second session with Miss Johnson about her health and fitness program that she does. And you heard a little about that testimony in there too. But it'll be totally separate. She's going to give you some exercise keys and some good eating and health cues so that you can use in your daily life. We'd like to thank you again, Ms. Johnson. It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
And tell your son I said hello.
I will. I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you too.